Hold the phone. Grantley St Bernard. It is time to talk about this team, the Gold Coast. We've won 3 in a row. That's right. We beat the Tigers twice. We beat the Taipans last week. And now there's no excuse whatsoever not to talk about us. So, enjoy the show, boys, and I hope there's a lot about the Gold Coast.
Yes, thanks for that word though. Hello everyone and welcome to It Goes Off. Round 17. It was a momentous occasion because the Gold Coast Blaze got their third consecutive win. And by rights, Grantley Bernard, that means you are allowed to talk about the work of the Gold Coast Blaze.
All I'll say about the Gold Coast Blaze, it's about time.
Hey, give credit where it's due.
It's about time that they finally fulfilled a bit of that potential, all right? But hats off, they've won their 3 in a row. They've done a good job, and I think they've slipped into 4th spot on the ladder.
Spot on.
I think, if there's going to be a team making a little run at it, I think we've got to watch out for the Gold Coast Blaze. So hats off. I love Wortho. He's a great man, great player. And I think...
don't start grovelling now, Grantley.
No.
You're very subdued in your compliments to the Gold.
All I was saying was that come and see me when you've won 3.
Well, they've won
3, so now I give them a compliment. Great. I think Wortho's going to be a big factor down the stretch for them. Oh. And I think if they can jump on his shoulders, they could cause some trouble.
Beep. There he is.
Hey,
backing up. The big truck is backing up.
Just get that picket out of your back pocket, all right?
There's no picket here, mate. I'm prepared to call it how I see it, and I thought you were a little harsh on the Gold Coast Blaze, and they've taken that on board, and maybe you've inspired them to some good play.
What I'd say lose this week.
Well, they've inspired them to some defence. They held the Cairns Taipans to only 49 points in a game. Now, that is a league record, which is extraordinary stuff when you consider the talent that they have at their disposal. So we give full credit to the Gold Coast Blaze.
Yeah, no, look, like I said, hats off. They've won their 3 in a row. They've done a great job. They've absolutely steamrolled Cairns, haven't they? Cairns, 49 points. It's the second lowest score in league history.
I thought the 49, there's been a lower than 49, has there?
47 by the Coburg Giants against your Nunawading Spectres in 1980.
Well, second lowest score ever. Still not something we really want to focus on because it's not great basketball. But all the good work the Gold Coast Blaze have been doing, still got a bit of catching up to do to the New Zealand Breakers and the Perth Wildcats. They just are in sensational form. They sit equal top of the NBL table. And they are starting to create some significant difference between them and the rest of the league.
Well, I mean, clearly they are the two teams right now that you would think are going to fight out the championship, and there's no reason to think otherwise. They play each other this week. Mm-hmm. That is going to be a blockbuster in Auckland. Both got the same records. It's going to be a fascinating matchup. I think it's going to be, well, it's got the potential to be the game of the season so far, hasn't it?
You would think so, and you'd expect that this would be some sort of warm-up for the final series. The way in which these two teams have dominated this competition, still a long, long way to go. But
not that long.
Well, 8-9 games.
It's coming to the sharp end.
It's at the pointy end, but you've still got 8 or 9 games, and I think what that does is provides teams like Gold Coast, also Cairns, to just refine a few things and maybe get back on track because it's still got a bit of work to do to figure out who is actually going to make the Final Four. The Gold Coast Blaze have snuck in there. The Cairns Taipans, they're the only other team with a winning record outside the 4.
It's probably a race in 5, you would think, for the 4. Or there's probably 4 teams to go into 3 spots. But I think probably just on that Breakers-Perth game, the Breakers, 9-1 at home, best home record in the league. Wildcats, 7-3 on the road, best road record in the league. What a recipe.
And what also adds a little spice to it is that the New Zealand fans are getting behind their team, as they should. They're the defending champions. They had a sold-out crowd a couple of weeks ago. They had over 7,000 to their game last weekend, where they beat the Sydney Kings comprehensively. So New Zealand fans, get out there and get your tickets because they are playing some mighty fine basketball. As are... maybe not mighty fine, but playing some better basketball is the Wollongong Hawks. Ayinde Ubak has come into the lineup, and it seems like Gordy McLeod has started to get this team firing as we expected before the start of the season.
Yeah, look, I think they've been disappointing. As
5 and 13.
Their season's been very disappointing. You do expect a bit more of the Wollongong Hawks. And I think as we spoke about bringing Ubaka in, I think that's probably a look, to getting something out this year, but I think it's probably a look more towards next year as well. The interesting thing from that game against the Tigers for me, from Wollongong's point of view, were the performances of Glenn Saville and Matt Campbell. Combined age of about 137. And but they played the most minutes of anyone for the Hawks, and they made very, very solid contributions. In fact, Matt Campbell has been named Player of the Week off the back of that performance. So well done to him. But I think probably the factor with them now is, what is their future? Are they going to play on? Have they got one more year? Have they got two? Are they done?
Oh, I don't think they're done. I think that as you get older, their roles may have to be refined just a little. But I think that it's great credit that you've got these two veterans being able to step up and show some leadership, as they should. But at their age, it becomes more of a challenge for them. But it just shows they've still got a bit of fire in the belly. So I think they've got a future. There's no doubt about that. But you would expect that the Wollongong Hawks would have to retool a little bit if they're going to figure in playoff action in the next season or two.
Well, I think with all due respect to Sav and Matty, I think if the Hawks are going to continue to rely on them being their better and key players, well, they've probably got some issues with their depth, haven't they? I mean, Sav's 36. He's averaging a tick under 7 points a game at 43%. Still grabs 6.5 rebounds a game, which is pretty decent. He's playing 27 minutes a game. That's a fair chunk of PT. Matty Campbell's 35, averaging 8 points a game at 41, and playing 25 minutes a game. So they're clearly still factors in the Wollongong roster. You just wonder for how much longer.
And a little bit of sweet revenge for Ayinde Ubaka. This game didn't have necessarily the spice you'd expect with a player leaving, because Ayinde Ubaka had no issue with the players, with the coach. It was just
the owner.
Well, that's what caused him to leave. But it good on him for being able to bounce back and find a home. And it looks like he's got a good home under the guidance of Gordy McLeod. Grantley, it's now time of this show where we look at some of the very good performances and some of the not so good performances in a little segment we call Who's Hot? Who's Not? And I'm going to focus on some of the more delicious performances in the competition. And I'm going to start off with the Wollongong Hawks. You've mentioned them. We mentioned the troubles that they were having. A shocking record at home, but full credit to them for not packing it up, packing it in, and maintaining the focus and getting a very, very good home win against the Melbourne Tigers. Also, Kevin Lish. Now, we all know Kevin Lish is a superstar. He's a grand final MVP player, and he's shown over the last 3 seasons what he's capable of doing. But he doesn't fly under the radar. Every time he goes plays against a team, there's going to be a great focus on what Kevin Lish is doing. But he's putting up some very good numbers. He leads the league. He's third in the league in scoring. And in 19 games, only 3 of those games he scored under 14 points. So he's a mark of consistency. So full credit to Kevin Lish and the work that he's doing. Also, it seems like the Melbourne Tigers, despite the little controversy they had with Ayinde Ubaka, they look as though they have revealed a player that's going to be very, very good in the NBL. And I speak of Myron Allen, who in his first 2 games is averaging 15 points a game, shooting it at 59%. He's dishing out 7 assists, and quite extraordinarily, at 5'10", I reckon. If you see this fella, he's a pocket dynamo, only a little fella, but he's in there and he's grabbing 6 rebounds a game. So it looks like the Melbourne Tigers have been able to recover from the loss of Ayinde Ubaka quite significantly with a very good player in Myron Allen.
It looks like it, but you know what the most important stat is with Myron Allen?
What's that?
0-2.
Well, that is correct. It does take a little time, and the Melbourne Tigers going through a real tough stretch at the moment. But with form that he's showing, you'd think that they are going to turn it around sooner rather than later. Now, let's get to the segment that Grantley really, really gets a lot of delight in, and that is identifying some of the lesser performances going on in the INET NBL. What have you got for us this week, Grantley?
The Not Hots. we have to say the Melbourne Tigers, a 6-game losing streak.
Not hot.
Cold. And we actually went out and did a little vox pop on this one and got the views of at least one fan. Let's have a look at it.
And that was a disgraceful performance, in my opinion. We threw that game. We gave it away by doing that. We gave them the friggin' game. In my opinion, that sucked. What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Well, there it is, Grantley, and I tell you what, they are going to be stretched to make the playoffs. Not out of the running altogether. 7 games remaining. They'd probably need to go 6-1 to be assured. Maybe 5-2 could get them there at 14-14. But playoffs. I reckon they are just concerned about getting a win.
I tell you what, we'll talk about the Tigers if they make the playoffs. All right.
You shut them down. Don't shut the Tigers down, please.
Also not hot.
You shut them down.
Also not hot. Just maybe cooling. Because he's had a great season. Diamond Simpson of the Adelaide 36ers. His last 3 games, he's averaged only 8 points a game and 5.9 rebounds. That's against his season averages of 14.1 and 8.2. So he's had a little dip, but he's still had a very good season in my opinion. But just cooled a little bit over the last couple.
Just a little slap there.
Not hot. Not hot, cold, terrible. Free throw shooting.
Across the whole league.
Free throw shooting.
Talk to me.
The Crocs versus Adelaide and the Breakers versus the Kings are combined 65.2% from the free throw line.
Not good enough.
65.2. But wait.
There's more.
There's more.
Oh, no.
Gold Coast and Cairns.
Oh, no. This is not going to be pretty.
Gold Coast, 15 of 25. That's 56%.
That's got hairs on it.
Cairns, 2 of 4. Well, you know, but it's 50. It's 50. So we've gone from 65.2 down to 56 and 50. What's going on? It's a free throw.
You would have thought that at this level they'd be able
I'll make 7 out of 10 cold.
Just a little bit of shakalicious action going on there at the free throw line.
Not good enough for the NBL.
No, we wouldn't have thought so. And what would you put it down to? Because it's just... you would reckon it'd be pretty straightforward, wouldn't you? Any explanation you could put your finger on to identify what the free throw shooting woes can be attributed to?
Missing free throws is inexcusable and unexplainable.
Grantley, you're dead right. The free throw shooting percentage is not where it needs to be, and perhaps it's just the excitement that we've created around the 24-second shot challenge from the free throw line, that perhaps the technique and the form's starting to break down and they're rushing it a little bit. But this week we're going to take a look at the Melbourne Tigers and focus on Benny Lewis, who's a very good three-point shooter, and see how many he can knock down in 24 seconds.
Back. Second instalment. Ben Lewis has got his game face on, he's mean mugging, he's ready to roll. I don't think there's much more to say. That's my coverage. It's good, excellent. Benny, how do you feel you're going to go today? He's always been pretty money from the foul line from what I've seen, so I expect nothing less from him today. Let's get him on. Excellent. Giving me a lot to work with, as usual. But I'm proud of you, mate. A couple of big games coming up. That was awkward. We screwed that up. But let's do the NBL handshake. Everyone knows it, obviously, so we do. The NBL, because it goes off.
Well, there it is. Benny Lewis with, according to Cam Tregar, maybe the Melbourne Tigers, part of their problem is they can't count. Because by my count, he got 9. And Cam Tregar only prepared to give him 8, and also he's called shenanigans on 15. And in fact, the world record as we speak is Darren Ning, who had 16. So Cam Tregar, can he not count? Yeah, oh, that's right. You're not talking about. You've even shut Cam Tregar down. Anything to do with Melbourne Tigers, you shut them down. How many do they have to win? You're not talking to me. How many do they have to win before you'll actually start communicating about the Tigers? Playoffs. Gee, it's got a long time before we're going to talk about them. But so, Grantley Bernard not talking about the Melbourne Tigers until they make the playoffs. Wow. Now it's time for that part of the program. We'd like to get your feedback. You can jump on the NBL Facebook page and punch us out a question, or you can come to the Twitter, which is a very, very popular form of social media these days. Andrew Gaze 10 is my handle, or Grantley Bernard, at Grantley Bernard. And if you send us in a question and Grantley judges it as the best question of the show, you'll be taking home an official Spalding NBL game ball. It's valued at over $129. If you actually want to purchase one, jump on the NBL website and you can pick one up for $129, or punch us out a question, you might win one. And it's a little section we call the Mark Zuckerberg Minute. And Grantley, talk us through the first question.
First question comes from Sean McDonough, who says, who could be the dark horse to topple one of the top two? The top two being Perth and New Zealand.
Yes, and this is a very, very common question we get via the social media. And I think right now you've got to look at the Townsville Crocs. We don't speak a lot about them, and we sort of think, yeah, very solid team, but we really probably don't give them enough credit because of the way they're playing. They're currently on third on the ladder. They're 10-7, so their record speaks for itself. They haven't played quite as many games as some of the others, and the latter stage of their season, they have still got a fairly tough run home. So a lot can change, but right now they're right there. The Gold Coast Blaze, they were a team that before the start of the season, many people actually rated as the team to beat. They've had a few hiccups, but it just seems now they're getting back on track. Outside of that, I know Cairns are thereabouts, and they've got a winning record at 10-9. They're in 5th spot, but really it's hard to see anyone else figuring in playoff action.
Yeah, look, I agree. I think right now it is New Zealand, Perth, daylight. But as I said before, I think if you want a smoky, I think Gold Coast could be the team that could cause some problems along the way.
Gee, haven't you changed your tune? Who else we got next, Grantley?
Our next question comes from Chris Ty, who says, is Jacob Holmes eligible for most improved player if he doesn't receive MVP?
Well, I think he might.
Do you think he's a Crocs fan?
I think he is a very passionate Crocs fan, and we have spoken glowingly about the work of Jacob Holmes. He has just been a revelation, given what we saw of him last year or over the last couple of years with the Adelaide 36ers. Didn't really get a lot of love when he was released by the 36ers. It was only through injury that he got an opportunity with the Crocs. So most certainly he would be a candidate for most improved. I'm not sure we can really throw him into the MVP conversation just yet, but he is having a stellar season.
Look, he is. He's been fantastic. I think he probably is in the most improved equation, but I still think that's going to head Daniel Johnson's way in Adelaide.
Daniel Johnson has been great, but really when you stack the numbers up, as far as a significant improvement, there's no questioning the work that Jacob Holmes is doing. And lastly, Grantley, we've got a question from Thomas Schmidt.
Thomas Schmidt is this
Any
week's
relation
winner.
to Oscar?
He could well be.
Oh.
He could be, but who knows? Anyway, Thomas Schmidt wins the Spalding Game Ball this week. For his question, can the Blaze win the title without a true centre? It seems to be the only spot the club lacks depth in.
Spot on. I think that is an accurate assessment, and my judgment is that no, they can't. I don't believe the Gold Coast Blaze can win the whole thing without a genuine centre. They've got getting great work out of Mark Worthington, do some terrific stuff. Will Hudson plays his role, but they don't have that real dominant inside presence. And where I think it'll hurt them the most is not just offensively, which a lot of people just equate, well, you need a big presence in there to get the scoreboard ticking over, but it's more on the defensive end. They junk things up, they extend the defence, and they get out and play that full court extended defence, and it's very good. Joey Wright's had great success with it in the past, but I think that it's hard to see how they can win the title without that legitimate centre. Grantley, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's probably a fair call. I think probably the big factor is if you're going to play that high-octane, up-tempo pressing defence, it's probably hard to maintain it through the playoffs if you've got to play quick back-to-back games. So that probably could be a negative factor on that. But who knows? Having said that, Perth likes to push up the floor on defence too, and then they've got the big bodies to fall back onto. They've got a really good combination of the bigs and the smalls.
Well, probably one of the best combinations with Luke Neville and Matty Knight. And when you're running that extended defence, if you've got the big fella down protecting any sort of transition baskets that forces teams to take the early perimeter shot, plays into the tempo that they like to play, it can be very effective. But without that inside presence, it just can take the edge off it. Just a smidgen. Well done, and to Thomas Schmidt, congratulations. A Spalding game ball coming your way very, very shortly. Grantley, as you so aptly mentioned, it is getting to crunch time in the INET NBL competition. Round 18 is upon us. Where can the good folk go and see some terrific NBL action?
It starts off on Thursday night with what could be the game of the season. The New Zealand Breakers at home to the Perth Wildcats. 14-5 against 14-5. On Friday, the Melbourne Tigers and the Adelaide 36ers. Somebody is going to win a game. The Tigers at 9-12 and on a 6-game losing streak, the Sixers 5-13. Also Friday, the Reptile Rumble up in Cairns, the Taipans against the Crocs. That one has got big playoff implications. On Saturday, the resurgent Gold Coast Blaze against the improving Wollongong Hawks. That could be a good game too. And on Sunday night, the Crocs are back home in Townsville against Adelaide 36ers, wrapping up their road double.
Real big weekend for the Crocs with that away-home double. And as you mentioned, that game against the Cairns Taipans, it could really bring the Taipans back to the pack if they slip up there and dent their playoff chances. Grantley, again, a spectacular performance by your very good self, and we thoroughly enjoy your contribution, but unfortunately that's all we have time for this weekend. Get out there and try and support your team, and we must pay homage to those that support us here, and it all starts with the naming rights sponsor of the NBL, and that is INET.
Connect better.
1
Centrebet.
And 1
Spalding.
Rent Smart.
And Virgin Australia.
Yes, and I need to get some rest, get this croaky voice back on track. Sounding a bit husky there, but I'll be back bigger and stronger next week, as will Grantley Bernard. We hope you can join us to check out all the goings on in the INET. Until then, we'll see you next week on the #1 podcast in the universe. It's called It Goes Off.